Hello, everyone. My name's Tomato Anus. Today is November 15th, 2023, and this is the Speedrun Explained Retrospective, where once a month I go and I watch an old video and I take notes about what I think the video did and didn't do well, just trying to learn from previous videos, glean insights of things that I did well, didn't do well, things that I might have started to do and dropped. All that kind of stuff, just trying to improve my videos in the future by looking at videos I've previously made. If you're watching this video in November of 2024, well, you could have watched it a whole year earlier by going to patreon.com/tomatoanus and supporting at the middle tier, the $6 tier and up. At least that's how it's set up right now. Who knows if that changes. But if you want to get caught up on all the ones from the past 12 months or so, then head on over to patreon.com/tomatoanus. But anyway, without further ado, today talking about Speedrun to Overdose Mama Murphy. I see right away that the next one is this beefy boy, and that's going to be like a 3-hour retrospective or something. It's going to be ridiculous. We will see. But today, Speedrun to Overdose Mama Murphy. Context for this video, I guess. Thinking back to where I was when I made it and all that kind of stuff. From what I remember, it was around May. Let's see when it came out. Video came out, May 18th, 2019. At the time, I was really just doing Fallout still. I don't think I really had the idea yet of covering other runs. I was maybe kicking around the idea in my head, but we're rapidly approaching that point, and I'm so excited to get to that. But I was kind of trying to think of more Fallout speedruns to cover. I had done all the main ones. I had done... By main ones, I mean the any percent runs. I had done Anthology, or Anthology was actually in the process of being made, if I remember correctly. This took me a bit to make. I can't remember entirely if I was recording for this. At the time, I was definitely doing runs for it. But yeah, speedrunning to Overdose Mama Murphy is a joke that the Fallout 4 speedrunning community had for a while. Because it's hilarious. It wasn't something we ever really took too seriously. And then a runner and community member, Gingenia, actually kind of worked on routing it a bit. I can't remember entirely all the details. I could go back and read a bunch of Discord messages but from my memory, it was largely Gingenia and maybe Brongle who helped route it. Then I don't think I really helped out. If I helped with the routing, it was just minor optimizations and stuff like that. Stuff like, from what I recall, we go and we loot Red Rocket gas station for chems, and it's like total RNG. And I remember just trying to work out stuff with that, but I don't think... I could be just conflating me grinding this run, even though I don't think I really grinded it too much. But I honestly don't remember much about this route other than save the Minutemen, find drugs, talk to Mama Murphy over and over. Thumbnail, I actually really like this thumbnail. This is a thumbnail I kind of revisit from time to time. This is the thumbnail that I think inspired me most for the route that I went with the thumbnails. Like, with this one, I had experimented with textless thumbnails before, first being with Fallout 3 any percent speedrun, again with Sleep With Everyone speedrun in New Vegas, and this was the first one that I don't know, this thumbnail I think is so noisy. If I had to redo any thumbnail, it would be this one. It's so stupid. It's just two NPCs. In my opinion, like by my standards for myself, I could do so better. And I remember making it being like, yeah, it's good enough. The background is super dark and it's just kind of muddied colors. The NPCs don't really pop much from it. And then I just added a timer onto it because of speedrun. I truly had no ideas for it, and I'm sure I could easily whip something up now of like Liam Neeson kind of in this format is where my mind first goes. Maybe this format with the sun rays. But enough about that video. With this one, I was living in an apartment, and at that apartment we had cherry blossoms, things that bloom pink in the spring, and it was beautiful right outside my windows. These, I'm going to call them cherry blossoms, just blooming in the spring. I was like, God, that's so beautiful. I would love to use that imagery in a thumbnail in some way. And I did this, the speed run, and then I was like, oh, it kind of works to put Mama Murphy in front of the cherry blossoms because it's kind of idyllic. It kind of evokes a sense of peace, which immediately then in your mind connects to like, oh, Mama Murphy died and she's in heaven with all the rose bushes, cherry blossoms, whatever the fuck they're called. And it was like a very natural click for me. It was the first time also that I tried to do some depth of field in my thumbnail, which I don't think I've really revisited, but blurred background with this over, though that might have just been the image I used as the background, had that depth of field with the cherry blossoms in front. I very well could have been that. But I do really like that depth of field. And like when I look at this, I'm immediately like, I should have blurred the background a bit, make these guys pop more. Because this does have a lot of pop to it. I'm not the biggest fan of using game models, especially the Fallout game models, for how janky they look. Not the biggest fan of using game models in thumbnails. Like if you look, I really haven't used many since. I used one, and this is like art. I'm just going all over the place right now. This one's just, seldom have I used game models since. When I do, I always look for art first. Like this Mirror's Edge one is fan art that I contacted the artist for and asked if I could use it in the thumbnail. And just generally, it's just, especially the Fallout 4 and Fallout 3 and New Vegas models, like they don't look good in thumbnails. They really don't. You need to do something with them, like outlines, make them pop a little more. Like this would look so much better with outlines. The Fallout 3 one, the Mama Murphy one would maybe look better with an outline. If I did anything to this, I would probably add like a glow behind her, kind of like a heavenly yellow glow, maybe a white glow. But yeah, that's kind of how the thumbnail came around. As for the naming of it, it was with the speedrun to Sleep with Everyone in Fallout New Vegas that I kind of first pivoted to changing the titles from saying glitchless speedrun of Fallout 4, any percent speedrun of Fallout 3, like Fallout speedrun of in 15 minutes. Like, I guess I did it with this, but like I started to lean more into, okay, what's the actual objective of the game, of the speedrun for like these meme runs? Okay, the title is a sentence describing that. It's not overdose Mama Murphy speedrun, Fallout 4 like speedrun Mama Murphy overdose, whatever. It's speedrun 2 overdose Mama Murphy and Fallout 4, and I feel like that just, it's easier to read. It's more enticing for the viewer seeing a title that's like an actual coherent thought as opposed to random words like overdose Mama Murphy speedrun Fallout 4. At least that's the opinion I had and have. So yeah, I think that's about all. I really don't remember a lot of this video, if anything. Like I remember a couple jokes in this pirate one, like Florida Man. There's a Florida Man joke in there. I truly remember no jokes. I don't remember any content of this video. I just remember the content of the run. But I think that's enough preamble. Let's actually get into the video then, and let me prepare the notebook by writing the title and everything. Also, before we start, there is now a dog on my lap. Edison came in and said, "I want up." So let's get started. Mama Murphy and Hey guys, my name is Tomato Anus, and this is a speedrun to overdose Mama Murphy in Fallout 4. If you're unfamiliar with the game, one of the main factions that you can side with are the Minutemen, and in the Minutemen, there's an NPC named Mama Murphy. Mama Murphy has a pretty unique role in the story of Fallout 4. If you talk to Mama Murphy after you rescue the Minutemen from the Museum of Freedom, you'll get a side quest called The Site. Right away, as I've stated in pretty much all of these retrospectives, I like the jumping into the run immediately, which again is something that I've been trying to implement in my videos again, with Tony Hawk Underground, the upcoming Half-Life video, trying to get into the run as early as possible. Half-Life, I have to explain some tech up front, but I think getting into the run as quickly as possible should always be a priority. Just yesterday, I had a call with the runner that I'm working with on the upcoming Outer Wilds video. And that video, I'm already kind of turning gears in my head, trying to figure out how I can get into it as fast as possible. I also really like the use of, a funny graphic like that. That's something that I still like doing today. It's very cheap, easy humor. Like in the Half-Life video, well, that's not too relevant, what I call Gordon throughout the video, but I call him a name, and when I first show him on screen, like when I'm introing the game, I show like a Minecraft skin of Gordon with the alternate name that I'm calling him throughout the video. So big fan of that. I think that that's always really solid. It kind of establishes a tone for the video right away, which I think is important. It lets people, it's a little bit of a hook. People don't sometimes, there's a lot of videos you sit down and watch, is like, okay, this is like a very serious breakdown, and right away it's like, oh, okay, this isn't taking itself too seriously. It'll explain, but we're not here for academic purposes, so I do like that. This quest mostly consists of talking with Mama Murphy. Side note, the cadence of my voice is horrible. Like, actually very grating, more so than previous videos that I've covered. Like, the Minutemen from the Museum of Freedom, you'll get a side quest. It's just very grating. It's very, very odd cadence. And cadence is something that I struggle with to this day, trying to sound natural. It's a very difficult thing for me. And I don't know, I try and strike a balance between a natural sounding cadence while also a pretty uniform delivery. I don't want my delivery to be all over the map, but I also don't want it to sound robotic like this. This is probably one of the worst offenders of that. Quest called The Site. This quest mostly consists of talking with Mama Murphy, giving her some drugs, and then she tells you one of her visions, which more or less is just heavy foreshadowing on different parts of the main storyline. Some of these visions actually help you out in the main quests, with one giving you damage reduction against a tough enemy, and a couple others providing hidden dialogue options that you can use later on to avoid fights. As you complete this quest, you'll end up finishing it in one of two ways. Audio balancing is a bit off. I remember talking about this in one of the previous videos as well. Audio balancing is something that it's definitely something I've gotten better at. I don't think I can really glean any insights from that other than just a skill that I've developed. It's not even like a hard skill to develop, but it's just not a skill I had at this point. But audio balancing is something I'm always trying to work on. It's especially hard for me when there's dialogue, and the dialogue in the game is really loud compared to my voice. The two talking, even when it's in German, when it's in a different language, it's really hard for me. It could just be me. Like, I DM a D&D campaign, and one of my players loves to use the Discord soundboard, and anytime he uses it, my brain just shuts off and I cannot think of what words I need to say. So could just be me. One is that you convince Mama Murphy that she really shouldn't be taking all these drugs and that she should go clean. The other possible outcome is that you continue to give Mama Murphy these drugs and she eventually overdoses and dies. And that's exactly what the goal of this speedrun is. Give Mama Murphy the goods and in exchange she rips in peace. As always, if you'd like to watch this run with the original audio from my stream as I did this run live, or if you'd like to watch this run with only game audio, there are links in the description below. I think generally, and this is something that Fallout 4 really lends itself well to, really solid intro in terms of covering who's Mama Murphy, what's her importance to the game, what can you do to her in terms of the causing her to overdose. It was a very nice, that was a very nicely written kind of pipeline from intro, like, this is what we're doing, here's the character, her importance to the game, what you can do to her, and this is a speed run for that. I guess I just said the same thing twice in a row just now. Forgive me for that. But pretty solid, I'd say. And it's just like, and here's the run, and here's alternate
the
versions.
Actual run, you may notice that the game is being played in German. That's because in this speedrun, we only really do the intro and we don't complete the actual game, and German is the fastest language if you're only playing the intro. If you play the full game, French is the fastest, but we're only going to be exiting the vault and giving Mama Murphy the drug, so we don't really care about the rest of the game. The appearances of Nate and Nora don't matter at all for this speedrun, but I picked the Asian and the redhead because that's the couple that I personally ship. However, when I was picking these presets, I was cycling through the faces a lot, and that's because as you create your character, Codsworth roams the house, and if you speak with Codsworth when he's walking back to the kitchen from the bedrooms, you save about half a second to a second. So I cycle through the character presets in a specific pattern that I came up with that perfectly times out Codsworth's position, so we always get to save this second.
So I explained that way after the fact, and I've again talked extensively about the importance of syncing up what's going on in the game with the commentary, or more so reverse that, syncing up the commentary with what's going on in the game. And I know I just kind of complimented the pipeline of onboarding a viewer, establishing the premise, importance of the character, role in the game, premise of the speedrun involving her. But having now just seen that part and seeing that explained, I think you either, one, need to show a replay of that, maybe have a replay like I do sometimes, or a preview pop in on the side and be like, here's what I'm talking about, you know, like a little screen pop over. I think that that's very important. Or what you do is you cover the speed tech just a little earlier, and you shift, like, let's kind of see.
That's exactly what the goal of this speedrun is. Give Mama Murphy the goods, and the outcome is that you continue to give Mama Murphy these drugs, and she eventually overdoses and dies.
Like, we can leave it at that and be like, more on that in a second, or cut this off at some point and just kind of bump the next 4 lines, bump them down the road, kick that can down the road just a little bit. And what you can do is take the explanation of the timing out of the faces and put that there. So that would mean that you have a speed tech explanation a minute into the video. The premise is partially established to be fully fleshed out in a moment, and you're already getting speed tech delivered. You get a joke right away with the Mama Murphy. You get a joke from the premise in the video title. You get a joke from the Mama Murphy modded face, so the tone is established. And right away, the goods are being delivered to the viewer of, here's some speed tech explanation. It's like you get the hook in their mouth, and then the speed tech explanation is you yank on the line, right? So I think that covering speed tech like that, especially if you're jumping into a run and there's downtime to explain things, you gotta prioritize the speed tech when it's happening. If it happens very early, you gotta prioritize that, because one, it makes more sense for the viewer, which is of course the purpose, but it makes it a lot more engaging, you know, a lot more. The viewer's like, oh, okay, this is a speedrun explain video, and we're already getting into it. I see. Okay, that makes sense, because I'm seeing it as it happens. So I think that really speak to it's never too soon to start explaining speed tech. Maybe I just open a video at some point with like, right away we do this. By the way, my name's Tomato Anus, also known as Slippery Nipples, whatever. This is speedrun of whatever. That might be a good idea. Open a speedrun immediately with speed tech. Immediately. It would need to be a speedrun though that has speed tech right at the start, and then like a minute of downtime. And then you use that minute of downtime for the normal intro. And the run is going on that whole time. That would be a really fun way to set up a video, but it would need the right run for it. It would need just the right run. Let me write all this down. Edison, hey, girlfriend, can I please? Okay, you're gonna go. See it. Oh no, you just want to face. You want to face north. All right. Oh. See you, chica.
This second. The pre-war house segment doesn't actually really consist of many speed strats. All we do is speak with people as they start talking to skip their dialogue. When the Vault Tech rep arrives at our house, we get a chance to assign our special stats. For this run, we just want to max out agility and endurance and then dump the rest into luck. The reason for this is that agility and endurance are the two special stats which directly affect the amount of time we can sprint for. The rest of our points went into luck because none of the other special stats would actually benefit us in the speedrun, and luck is physically the fastest stat to dump any remaining skill points into. As typical of Fallout 4 speedruns, this game is ran on the very easy difficulty and also is performed on the 1.1.30 patch, which is one of the very first patched versions of the game.
Something that I talked about in a previous retrospective as well that I think would have been really nice here is when I'm in advance talking about special stats. We max out agility for this reason. Have on the side agility pop in, like max agility, or maybe like special point strategy or special point reasoning, max out agility, and then like in italics right below it, increases maximum AP, ergo more sprinting time, dump points into luck, whatever. Maybe I think that would probably be really smart and something that I would like to do in the future. Again, it's just a matter of finding the time for that, finding a run for that. Next time I cover a Fallout run or a run similar to that, maybe something, I don't know, something having to do with space, who knows.
In addition to this, no mods or DLC were installed when performing this run.
Saying if I'm strapped for time, like I said, Fallout 4 has a long intro, there's lots of time to talk about things, there's lots of runway to talk about patch version, frame rate, mods, DLC, and also, like I've said before, my audience was very different at this time. Speedrunning wasn't as widely known, or I guess not wise. That's the wrong way to put it. Speedrunning wasn't. It was still very popular, still very mainstream, but it's really with the advent of especially how big YouTubers like Summoning Salt have gotten. Things like this are kind of go without saying. The general public is generally, the general speedrun viewing and gaming audience is generally aware no mods are used. You'll still get comments here and there about it, but like I felt like I was really trying to just cover my bases to avoid comments when I would say stuff like this, and I don't think it's as necessary. I never mention this in videos anymore. But if something like this were important to the run, to specifically mention no mods or DLC were installed, I think maybe the best example I could think of is if like I were to cover a speedrun of Minecraft. There's so many different like versions of that game. There's so many mods and stuff like that you could just have a text pop in. I'm really trying to tighten up what is put into a script because time is so valuable. As I've said before, these videos are constrained to how long the run is, with an asterisk, of course, because you can do pause sections, slow motion, etc., fast forward. But generally try to adhere to the length of the run as much as possible. And if it's not necessary to say and there's better things to talk about, and if you just talk about those better things, and you don't need to pause or fast forward or pause or slow down, but mentioning these things like mods or DLC would necessitate a pause or a slowdown, just don't talk about those things that aren't as necessary. Just throw them on screen in text. They're not required to talk about.
There really isn't much speed tech in the intro to Fallout 4, so I'm just going to skip forward a
Whoa.
little bit to when we get into the vault.
I did not remember that at all. Whoa. A complete skip forward. Okay. That actually really caught me off guard. I was fully prepared and ready for us to sit here and watch me find random things to talk about. But I do like that. I think I would probably do the fast forward these days, just so you can still kind of see it happening, albeit at like 5 times speed, so it's ridiculously fast. But I do actually really like that in times where it's super slow, and especially when the focus of my channel was Fallout 4 and Fallout in general. So it's very, very, overdone. I have a million videos on my channel already talking about this. There's nothing really worth talking about. So I do like that. Nowadays, I would probably use that for No Feeling as final section, or just the freezer part that's coming up. But that really caught me off guard. That was not expecting that at all.
There are a couple major glitches coming up that I'm going to need to fully explain.
I guess on another note of that, it kind of goes hand in hand with that glitchless video that we covered 2 months ago in September, where I kind of talked a lot about efficient use of time and skipping mentioning small details and bringing them up when relevant. And I think that kind of was still in my head, but I don't know. I think after at some point I got this bug in my head. It's like, I got to show the full run to completion, but I don't think that's entirely necessary all the time. It's of course a difficult act to balance when I'm working with other runners, because I don't want to discredit the importance of things they're doing in a speed run, but I think that there are times for it, especially if I reach out and branch out to do longer categories, which I am considering more and more these days, so we'll see.
In the meantime, I hope you enjoy my riveting gameplay of Super Mario 64. If you're curious, I am playing on an actual Nintendo 64.
Perfect. This is the perfect type of stuff I would just throw on screen. Just say I'm playing
and capturing my gameplay with an IO Data GV USB 2. Now, with an end goal of overdosing Mama Murphy, there are a couple things we need to take into consideration. One is that Mama Murphy is a little bitch and will only take one drug at a time,
Jesus
with a
Christ.
12-hour span needing to be passed between taking her next drug.
The delivery on that was a bit intense. It was a bit intense. I don't like using the word bitch. I don't like calling people bitches, especially women. But that was a little intense. I think you can still include the cutting delivery of bitch, but have the emphasis be like, I don't know, the way that was delivered made it sound like Mama Murphy's a bitch, like calling a woman a bitch, as opposed to she's a bitch because she don't do all the hard drugs at once. Like, that's clearly what I'm going for. She's a little bitch because she has to let time pass between taking multiple drugs. She doesn't do a cocktail. And I think that could be delivered just a little better, because man, is that like, holy shit. I'm like gripping my chair at that. That hit me in the chest. Which I do like, but I think that that hit me in the chest for the wrong reason. The impact from it should be the intensity of bitch and not the immediate perception of why I'm calling her a bitch.
Being a speedrun, we want to find a way to pass this 12-hour time span in as quickly a manner as possible. The obvious solution is to just sit down in a chair and wait for 12 hours, but doing that takes a long time. Instead, what we do in this
opportunity for a joke there. I don't know how I didn't think to say this. Can sit down and wait for 12. It's probably just because my delivery was much more uniform, or I guess not even uniform, just what I said before, you know. But like nowadays, I would say sitting down in a chair and waiting 12 hours takes a long time. It takes like frickin' 12 hours. So instead,
speedrun is fast.
That's what I would do now.
A location far enough across the map that when we fast travel there and back, at least 12 hours will have passed. The only issue with this is that we need to discover a location a far distance away, which would typically take a lot of time to run to. Luckily, as a speedrunner, we have two major glitches that we can use to travel a far distance in a very short span of time. These two glitches are punch warping and cover sliding. While similar in effect and results, these two glitches are very different. Punch warping is completed by attempting to melee attack something with VATS while you stand behind an object that you normally wouldn't be able to walk through.
Again, visuals would be amazing during this. Text on screen would be amazing during this. And that is something that I then did when I covered the Fallout 4 Any Percent run in around August of 2020. So that is something that I changed and have done since, but visuals would be so nice right here.
Naturally, the game has a hard time pathfinding for how to put you next to your target. This means that there's about a 1 to 2 second delay from when you confirm your attack on your target until you actually teleport to next to it to actually hit them with your baton or whatever melee weapon you have equipped.
I feel like I'm pausing a lot right now, but very interesting use of the word naturally. Naturally, the game has a hard time pathfinding. It seems a bit weird to use that word there.
If you quit out of VATS while the game is thinking about how to put you next to your target, the game will actually store the coordinates of where you are standing, which completes the action of setting up a punch warp. The next time you attempt to melee attack an object in VATS, you'll then get teleported back to the coordinates of where you were standing. This means if I set up a punch warp inside of Vault 111 and then trigger the punch warp out in the wasteland, I'll get brought back to around the coordinates of where I set up the punch warp in Vault 111, but I'll be in the corresponding coordinates inside of the Commonwealth. Typically, setting up a punch warp inside of an area corresponds with around the center of the map in the Commonwealth by Green Tech Genetics. Cover sliding is very similar, but instead of using VATS, we instead use the cover mechanic inside of Fallout 4. If you stand behind an object and aim down sights at the corner, you'll peek around the corner. If you stop aiming and enter third person at the same exact time, you'll break the animation of aiming around the corner and your coordinates will be stored similar to how they are with punch warping. Similar to how we trigger punch warps by melee attacking in VATS, cover slides are triggered by being in first person and taking out our gun. The big difference between the two though, are that punch warps seemingly teleport us to our end location, while cover slides slingshot us, meaning that we can bounce off of objects along the way and in turn makes it more inconsistent. However, this also means that we can discover locations along the way while we cover slide, where typically you won't be able to with punch warps. Also, if you were wondering, during this entire time I was trying to get the 100 coin star inside of TikTok clock, and I did end up getting it later on in the stream. Now that we have the
I watching that section and listening to it, like of course I was watching the SM64 gameplay while listening, but I do like what the little throw in line at the end. By the way, I end up getting that star later in the stream. I do like that throwaway line. But man, just is that a lot of information to parse as a viewer, especially if you're unfamiliar with it. And it, honestly, I'm sitting here watching like, how did anyone ever find this entertaining or informative? It's so much word salad thrown at you and so much to keep track of without visuals. I don't know. Maybe I'm just having a hard time removing myself from it and thinking about learning this stuff for the first time, but I feel like I would have a really hard time understanding what I just said. And maybe that's the appeal. Maybe that's the appeal to some people, is it doesn't make any sense, but he explains it and it's just so complicated that it still doesn't make sense. but it makes just enough sense where I'm like, oh, maybe I know what's going on. Maybe that's the appeal for some people, but man, I'm just shocked that people enjoyed this video enough for the video to get 1.3 million views. Stupid. I just cannot speak to the importance of how much I find visuals to be, like how important I find them to be now.
Those two major glitches explained though, we get to see the run really begin after we exit the cryopod. In Fallout 4, you can use items to climb over walls by looking down and walking backwards while holding an item under your feet. This is typically known as item climbing or clipping, depending on how you get through the wall, but in the vault we use cones for this, which we refer to as VLC clipping. In the vault, our main goal is to pick up both the security baton to set up a punch warp, and also to pick up a 10mm pistol so we can set up a cover slide at the end of the vault. You may be asking why we use a security baton instead of just using our fists to set up a punch warp, and the reason for that is that it's faster to have a security baton to hotkey rather than having to menu into your Pip-Boy to unequip your pistol. In the vault, we set up the punch warp by standing between some boxes and a wall and targeting some rad roaches, and then we just item clip into the elevator room, completely bypassing the Pip-Boy. In Fallout 4, if you manage to exit the vault without picking up the Pip-Boy, the game will automatically give it to you, but it'll be invisible unless you quit to the main menu and then reload your save, or you enter power armor. Additionally, because we don't actually pick up the Pip-Boy, that means we don't do the animation where we dust off the screen, which means that we still have a really dusty screen on our Pip-Boy, so if the screen looks cloudy at all when I'm navigating the map, that's why. While we wait for the elevator to descend, we quickly set up a cover slide in this corner, and then we enter the elevator and exit the vault. Once we're out of the vault, we need to trigger our cover.
Again, the syncing, which I say it every video, but I just have to say it. We set up a cover slide in this corner. What fucking corner are you talking about? It happened 10 seconds ago.
On our Pip-Boy, so if the screen looks cloudy at all when I'm navigating the map, that's why. While we wait for the elevator to descend, we quickly set up a cover slide in this corner, and then we enter the elevator and exit the vault. Once we're out of the vault, we need to trigger our cover slide, but we can't trigger it right from the vault pad, because that means that we're at too high of an elevation to actually survive the fall damage when we land. Instead, we head down to some rocks on the nearby cliff and then trigger our cover slide. As I said before, you can discover locations while you cover slide, and on this one we discovered Sanctuary, which is perfect because that means we save 17 seconds later on. This time is saved, where later on we just fast travel to Sanctuary as opposed to having to fast travel to Vault 111 and then run down the hill and discover Sanctuary on foot. Earlier, I said there were a couple things that we needed to keep in mind when running this category, and the second one that I failed to mention earlier is that we need to get 5 different types of drugs from Mama Murphy. Unfortunately, drugs spawn randomly in containers all across the wasteland, so, as with most first world countries, there isn't really a way to get them all legitimately. Instead, after landing our covers, 5 different types of drugs from Mama Murphy. Unfortunately, drugs spawn randomly in containers all across the wasteland, so, as with most first world countries, there isn't really a way to get them all legitimately.
Interesting line.
Instead, after landing our cover slide, we head right over to Red Rocket and enter the workshop menu because we're going to be doing a glitch that will continually restock a container that spawns chems. While in the editing menu, if you pick up a table that a chem container is on, and then exit the workshop while still holding the table, then it'll restock the container that's on top of the table. We do this over and over until we get all 5 drugs that we need to give to Mama Murphy.
Huh. I mean, this doesn't have anything to do with the video or the quality of the video, but that was the thing when I was thinking about Gingenia routing this and Brongle potentially helping. It was like there's something weird going on with getting the drugs, and I couldn't remember what it was, but interesting. I did not remember that. The first world country line. What a weird line. Like, I see the humor in it, but man, what a weird line.
These 5 drugs we need are Med-X, Mentats, Psycho, Jet, and Buff Out. After we have all the drugs, we're able to leave our makeshift meth lab and head down to the Museum of Freedom. Along the way, we want to be careful with how we spend our action points because we want to make sure we have enough right when we discover the Museum of Freedom to trigger
Makeshift meth lab is a great line.
our punch warp because you do need AP in order to use VATS. As we attempt to conserve our AP, we pull out our pistol and kill a couple raiders because you do need AP in order
What did that say? And how fast was
to use
this?
VATS. As we attempt to conserve our AP, we pull out our pistol.
That's barely on screen. That needs to be on screen longer. I used to always be a person who was just like, oh yeah, well, you pause with K, J and L are back and forth 10 seconds. Arrow keys are back and forth 5 seconds. And comma and period are frame advance. And then I realized, oh, a lot of people watch on mobile, on TVs. It's not as easy to do that. Some people just don't know that you can frame advance by doing, by using period and comma. So nowadays I try and leave the notes. When I do notes, one, I've gotten a bunch of comments about how notes shouldn't be at the top of the screen because then the title blocks them when you pause. and they shouldn't be at the bottom of the screen because then they're blocked by the progress bar, especially if the note is too small. So I've really been trying to do notes on the side of the screen, and I try to have them up long enough for people to fully read them, but if I need to put them away early, I try and have them up for at least a couple seconds so people can easily pause on them and read them. So that's a big change that I've made since then. Yeah, that note disappears way too quickly.
We pull out our pistol and kill a couple raiders along the way,
which I don't even know why I did the note. I'm in no rush here with this dialogue, clearly. Talking about makeshift meth labs in first world countries. I could so just mention, by the way, I got an invisible gun glitch here. It happens sometimes. Don't know why. That took me 4 seconds to say. I have 4 seconds to spare here, big time. So I don't know why that had to be a note.
which saves us time down the road. We don't actually need to kill all of these raiders outside the Museum of Freedom because these ones aren't actually tied to any quests that we need to advance. But it is nice to kill them just to avoid any snafus later on where they would interrupt our ability to fast travel. Once we discover the Museum of Freedom fast travel point, we trigger our punch warp on a nearby raider and fall underneath the map while we punch warp.
Again, the syncing is off. I gotta be saying this earlier. If I just talked slightly faster and in a more normal cadence, that'd be much easier. I would have so much more time to explain things if I didn't talk like this. You know, if I didn't talk about how Burger King has foot lettuce, if I just talked in a normal cadence, it'd be much easier to fit things in.
While falling, we look north and walk backwards, which will cause for us to spawn right next to Green Tech Genetics.
It's already way past. People who aren't familiar are like, wait, did he not do that yet? So it's just so important. And I feel like a fucking broken clock saying, that's not even the right term for this because broken clocks are right twice a day. I feel like I'm just repeating myself over and over and over and over and over by saying this, but it's just so important. And I was really bad at this point. I didn't focus on that. And it's very important. If you're ever going to make a video explaining something technical, make sure your commentary syncs with the dialogue. Commentary syncs with the visuals. It's so important. So important.
We then run to Green Tech Genetics to discover the fast travel point, quit to the main menu, and reload our save. As I mentioned before, our Pip-Boy is invisible until we quit to the main menu, so we do this so that we can then fast travel back to the Museum of Freedom. Also, the reason why we did this to discover Green Tech is because Green Tech is the location that we're going to be fast traveling to and from in order to progress the game clock 12 hours so that Mama Murphy will take her next drug. Once we arrive at the Museum of Freedom, we kill the remaining raiders just so we can fast travel safely later on and then enter and kill the raiders inside.
God, the music in this game.
Along the way, we lockpick and take the fusion cell so we don't have to backtrack later after we talk with Preston and Sturgis.
That's the one time that I think a quick note is totally okay. When you're just like, oh, I misspoke a word, and you just you have it pop up while you're saying it. Like
fusion cell, so we don't.
That's totally fine. I think that's acceptable. But when it's when there's at least a little bit more substance to the note, I do think it's important that you taking into consideration the things I talked about before.
Have to backtrack later after we talk with Preston and Sturgis.
What is that aim?
Ich helfe gern. Bitte, erzähl weiter. Tut mir leid. Klingt hart. Eine gute Idee kann einiges bewegen.
Auf dem Dach ist ein abgestürzter Vertibird. Alt. Vorkriegszeit. Hast du...
Klar, in Ordnung. Minigun. Das wollte ich...
I haven't said anything in a while. in the video, and I think that's totally okay. I think that's totally fine. I think that breaks in commentary, if there isn't much to say, are totally good. I think that it's okay for the viewer to just sometimes watch, especially if it's straightforward, there's nothing to explain.
Ich helfe gerne, wenn ich kann.
I think something that I probably could have talked about in this video that I didn't mention at all, like the no mention of mods or DLC and patch and all that, can be so easily replaced by talking about dialogue camera. So I don't know if I ever really talk about the dialogue camera in any Fallout 4 runs, and it's kind of important because it allows us to do things like position ourselves across the room and still talk to them, and line ourselves up so we can mash through the dialogue of multiple people at once. So that's something that I didn't talk about that I would for sure mention if I were making this today.
After saving the Minutemen and talking with Preston and Sturgis, we exit to the roof and enter our power armor. Before we actually rip off the minigun though, we kill a raider across the street on a roof with our pistol because Preston doesn't have the best aim. Not saying I do, but Preston's is for sure worse. Before we rip off the minigun, we put away our pistol. This is because if we have out our pistol when we take the minigun, we'll automatically have the minigun out. The minigun is very slow to run with, so naturally we want to avoid having it out for as long as the minigun is very our pistol when we take the minigun, we'll automatically have the minigun out. The minigun is very slow to run with, so naturally we want to avoid having it out for as long as possible. Once we have the minigun, we then have to take out the Deathclaw, followed by any remaining raiders in the street. After clearing out all obstructions to Euphoria, we then fast travel back to the Museum of Freedom and ditch our power armor. Inside, we speak with Preston and Mama Murphy and let them know what we did.
Alles gut, Preston. Mach keinen Aufstand.
Das war wirklich erstaunlich.
Das beruht auf Gegenseitigkeit.
Man kann nie...
Aha, gern geschehen. Jederzeit.
Dann komm doch mit.
Okay, Garvey. Ich bin dabei. Sag es mir bitte. Ich muss es wissen.
After we speak with one of two token black men in the game and the old hag, we then fast travel to Green Tech Genetics, followed by fast traveling to Sanctuary. The reason we fast travel to Green Tech first is because we have to pass enough time to allow for the Minutemen to arrive at Sanctuary.
I could so cut out some of this loading screen. This whole loading screen doesn't need to be in if I'm not talking about anything. God, that was so slow. Oh, we have to sit through another one. Generally, this is a lot more simple run than other ones, so there's not as much to talk about in the commentary.
Once we're at Sanctuary with the Minutemen, we actually have to initiate a dialogue with Preston before we speak with Mama Murphy. If we don't do this, then when we try and talk with Mama Murphy, she won't actually speak with us. After we talk with Preston real quick, we can give Mama Murphy her first drug, and then she requests that we build her a chair.
Aber das
Hier, hab schon welches.
ganz entbarrt.
Klar. Hey,
Ich muss dich einen Gefallen bitten, Kind.
klar. Ich helfe gern.
Danke.
In Ordnung?
After building her a chair, we can then fast travel to Green Tech and back, skipping the time that it takes for her to walk to the chair, and also the cooldown on her ult, take drugs.
There we go.
We then
That killed two birds with one stone here. This note is on screen a lot longer and shortening the loads, which is exactly what I talked about like a second ago. Very interesting. Good job, Tommy from 2019.
walk to the chair, and also the cooldown on her ult, take drugs.
But
We then spend the
totally could have done that on those previous 2 loading screens as well and cut another like 20
rest of the
seconds
run
out.
alternating between giving Mama Murphy her drugs and fast traveling to and from Green Tech. Every time we give her drugs, we have to be sure to actually finish the dialogue of her going through the site, followed by some precautionary warning of like, I don't feel so good, kiddo. If we don't...
See, that's so good. That's so good. Like, there's actual personality in that line, and it made me laugh. Like, there needs to be that more throughout the whole video. Of course, it's really funny when it's the only time in the entire video, and I'm talking so robotic the whole time, and then out of nowhere I go, I don't feel so good, kiddo. Like, it's really funny. But I think that generally the quality of the video is far improved if the delivery is more normal and then there's still moments of brevity like that.
Actually go all the way through the dialogue and we fast travel away before she gives that precautionary line, then the next time that we talk to her and give her a drug, she'll say the last precautionary line she was supposed to say. In total, we give her 5 drugs, meaning that there's 5 precautionary lines, with the 5th one being the one where she dies. Say you fast travel away early to skip one of them, say the 3rd one. Then when you go and give her the 4th drug, the precautionary line that she gives you will be the 3rd one in order that she's supposed to give you. That means when you give her her 5th and final drug, she'll give you the 4th precautionary line and not the one where she dies. Because you can only give her 5 drugs total, that means that you'll never get the 5th precautionary line, which is the one where she dies. So in order for her to actually overdose, we need to be sure to sit through all of her dialogue every time, but really it's only a second or 2 lost each time, because we just mash through everything very quickly. Along the way, she'll occasionally start saying a random line when we try and talk to her that we want to skip. All we have to do is shoot her once in the leg and it'll skip this line for us. The run officially ends when Mama Murphy says her last line and dies. After she dies, we celebrate by parading her body around to show the Minutemen and giving them pecks on the lips with Mama Murphy's dead body. In all, this speedrun is a pretty funny idea, but there really isn't actually much to it beyond the surface level idea of it. The one thing that's very cool about it is being able to do that chem respawn glitch that isn't in any other Fallout 4 speedruns. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed this kinda different speedrun. The next heavy commentary video is going to be a long one, probably around an hour 45 in length, so I'll see you guys then. In the meantime, I've been Tomato Anus, and I hope you have an above average day.
Very nice. Overall, like I said, the run itself, there wasn't much to really talk about. It's a very simple run. Not much tech other than the cookie cutter Fallout 4 tech, and then that med kit respawn shit. Did have a lot of takeaways though. I was able to write a fair bit. I even drew out like an example of what a visual could be for like special stats reasoning where it like slides in and whatnot. So definitely was able. Whoa. Did not mean to accidentally start Dirty Works. Was that starring Norm Macdonald? Well, that was really loud. Did not mean to accidentally click on Dirty Work. I meant to click on something else. Definitely was able to glean a lot of insights from that shorter video. Yeah, I think overall enjoyable run. I think that there's a lot more. I left a lot of potential on the floor in terms of things to joke about, talk about. I expected that video to honestly be funnier than it was, be shitpostier than it was. But the run itself does a lot of heavy lifting. What's up, girl? What's up? So I'd say overall good video. I think that the previous ones we've covered are all better. I think that I think most of the videos we've covered have been better, just kind of all around in terms of explanations, humor. So I still enjoyed it. I still did enjoy it, but it makes me wonder how it has that many views. I don't really think I have too much more to add, but next month is going to be the anthology run. I will honestly probably be recording that at like 2 times speed. My lighting is being really weird. My camera is being weird with the lighting, so I apologize for that. I'll probably have to record this at either 2 times speed or record it over like 2 to 3 days. So we'll see which route I go, but I'll see you guys then. And till then, have an above average day. Peace out, everyone.